In Job chapter 35, Elihu, who was introduced in chapter 32 from yesterday's video, continues speaking to Job, and he announces the idea that maybe righteousness or sin doesn't have any impact on God at all, and that any action that man commits here on earth cannot possibly affect God. Our wrongdoings can affect other people here on earth, but it cannot affect God himself. Elihu then went on to address Job's complaint, how he was complaining that God doesn't help those or listen to those or respond to those who are crying out to help during their time of suffering. And his exact response to Job's complaint was that people often cry out during their time of suffering without truly seeking God's will or without trying to honor God. They want it all to work out the way that they have it planned in their heads. So he's telling Job not to speak arrogantly just because God's plan does not line up with his plan. In chapter 36, Elihu is still speaking to Job, and he claims that he is speaking on God's behalf and has deep knowledge that he wants to share with Job. And so he begins by praising God for his justice and his power over the world. He says that God does not despise anyone who is righteous, and he brings justice to those who are afflicted. He says that God uses suffering as a tool to change the way you are living if you are living in an unjust manner, to turn away from sin and to turn towards righteousness. And he says that those who listen learn from suffering, but those who refuse to listen and change their ways face destruction. And it says that Elihu then exalted God's greatness. He says the rain and the clouds and the thunder and lightning is all a symbol of God's greatness. He urges Job not to question God's ways. Chapter 37 is the last part of Elihu's speech to Job, and he ends it by proclaiming God's majesty. Elihu focuses specifically on God's majesty through controlling nature. He describes thunder and lightning as God's expression of his voice, because he's the only one that can control nature that way. And then he goes on to kind of repeat himself, and he urges Job to consider the fact that we as people cannot fully comprehend God's power or the reason that he does things, but we just need to accept what he does and try to seek his will and not our will. If we seek God's will, great things can come of it.